Community Beacon, Fridays at 6:30 EST, with your hosts Michaeldseville and Joel Simmons. A channel whose focus is liberty. A place where the lessons discussed and taught will create openings to a more open and freer mindset. A mindset where you may reach the height of your potential and excel. Here are your hosts, Mike and Joel.
Guess we just hit record. All right, guys, what is going on? Once again in the place to be, Community Beacon. I've done this intro like 30 times a day. I appreciate it. It's 6:30. That means you're watching us. It's on a Friday. Real quick housekeeping, guys, before we get into the conversation for the day. What it takes, Mondays. You know the channel, Michaeldseville Real Estate on all channels, YouTube and Facebook. Of course, on Wednesdays, we have It Starts With Who?
It starts with me. All right, fellas, ladies, you need to be out there. We're going to have a great time inside of our new show. It's been a beautiful thing. We've got some great new guests that have been showing up. You know, let me just tell you a few of the guests that we got showing up. We got Elan Meshke, and we have Tia Goodwin. You might have already seen Ann Brown, Russell G. Heath, Dupe. That was an awesome one. I mean, it's just, we got so many great people. Jim Van Allen, I don't know if you saw that one with him yet. So just a lot of great people from all over. You know, some of these people are in different continents, and some of these people are millionaires, whatever. They're people, and they're here to share their story. So jump on in, have a good time with us, and get your encouragement.
The Tenacity Foundation, that's where you could find it, bro. You all find Tenacity Foundation. They're dropping new episodes at 12:30. Before I start the last show, the Male Perspective, guys, go check it out. Male Perspective YouTube channel.
What day?
Man, I don't know. Whenever Beethoven wants to drop it.
Is that how it works?
Yeah. I know we film it on a certain day, but I know he does a lot of teases and those 1 minute shorts and clips before he drops the episodes. But if you go to the Male Perspective, go subscribe. Actually, go subscribe to all of these different channels and hit the bell, that notification bell. That way, when it drops, you're at least notified about it. Definitely this show, Community Beacon, if you're watching it now, continue watching 6:30 every Friday. And this month and for the last couple of weeks, we've been talking about effective communication, negotiations, some awesome jam-packed episodes filled with a lot of information. And tonight it will be no different. Here's one of the huge is the tone. Man, I'm huge with my numbers, so you all forgive me. When we're talking about the communication, it's 7% are the words. What is it? 50. Oh man, don't take over while I look this thing up.
That's all right, bro. That's all right. I'm interested in exactly what you're about to bring to the table. Because here's the thing about numbers is, it's just, they're very difficult to argue with. And you can say whatever you want to say.
I'm ready.
When you have those numbers, it definitely makes a huge difference in the perspective that we have. You can always change the numbers, right? Add more people.
So let's the communication. It says it's 7% spoken words, 38% voice and tone, 55% body language. And when I heard that, and this is even over the phone, guys, this is why you see a lot of salespeople, a lot of people who make calls, etc. They actually stand up when they start making the phone calls. And in person, it's even more. Out there seen. You know what I mean? Depending on people's body language, how far their hands go out. If they're up here, then they making themselves bigger. People who tend to be meek they close their bodies up a little bit. And then this week we're going to talk about the tone because and what's important is the amount of effect that the actual words have, which means that it doesn't matter how you say, but how you say it that makes a difference.
Yes. That body language, that mannerism, that body language, how you're standing, you know, you can speak as quiet as a church mouse, but hover over somebody. If you hover over them like I'm hovering over this thing like this, you hover over somebody and speak really, really low and tell them that they're wrong at something, there's a good chance, especially if it's a child, that they're going to feel as if something bad is about to happen. They're going to fear.
You got that. You spoke about dynamic silence, the pauses. If you go ahead.
I'm sorry, man. I'm cutting you off. I was just thinking about something. I trained my dog to not fear me. I trained them to not fear me. So, and what I mean by this is like, see, you ever go to someone's house and they lift up their hand or something like that, and the dog, kind of cowers and goes away.
Right, especially if they've been abused, yeah.
Especially if they've been abused. Well, what I did was I even went to this distance with my dog. Like I can throw a punch at my dog, and my dog won't wince. Because what I would even sit there with them and the dog be there, and then I slowly throw my hand out to him, just like that, and then I ball it up, and I do the same thing. I never punch him, never hit my little Timmy. I love him, but I would do this, and then I would just go over and then I pat him on the head. Then I do a little faster, I pat him on the head. Next thing I'm doing like this, and I pat him on the head, and now he just knows there's no type of movement that I will ever make that's going to hurt him. None. And you can do the same thing with people, because a lot of times, like you said, that's what happens with a dog. Well, you take a child and you beat a child half to death, half their life, and for the rest of their life, they're always going to think when someone gets or looks or speaks in whatever manner it was that you or that individual was doing, they're going to become either coward or they're going to become an aggressor.
Yeah. And a lot of our body language, specifically body language, is universal. So and a lot of our body language also affects our emotions. They're said that if you're feeling down, and someone's depressed, you can tell someone's depressed. They start to get low, and eyes are always facing down, and different things. You can do things to actually change it from a physiological level. You can look up. They said it's hard for you to be upset or angry if you're looking straight up. If you put a smile on your face, the brother told me about me smiling at one point in time. I need to smile more. I remember when we had that conversation. So that helps with your communication. We even smile over, like I said, I'm into the phone calls, smiling over the phone. People can feel it. And actually, when you're making a phone call, the smiles and your gestures, like you still do the curious, you put your hand on your chin, it makes you come off as serious. Although these people aren't looking at you, but it comes through in your voice. And a lot of the things you do over the phone have to be exaggerated because they can't see you. It's not a face-to-face. Face-to-face meetings, which I don't know now, especially with COVID and people having to put that mask over their face, I think a lot of things were, a lot of cues are lost when the mask was over people's faces. But when in a normal, normally when we're going through societal skills, like these are important things of like we kind of come up with these different things, right? But specifically in tone, let's talk about the tone of the conversation and how you can actually change the tone of a conversation. And then we can also get into the actual tone of our voice and how we come across. I don't know which one you want to start with, the tone of our voice, or you want to talk about the tones of the conversation.
I'm really interested in hearing, your perspective on tone of voice.
Oh man. Yeah, absolutely. So we spoke before. We spoke before. So we're talking about the aggression. There's certain, you know what I used to. It's interesting in society, um, especially in the facial features of how you can do certain things in your face that can come across as aggressive. And I remember, back in the day, hanging around with some really tough guys. They were known to be tough, but in person, they were just the nicest people. So you can easily see how they can go from the mothers saying they're just great kids because around the parents or the mothers or the adults at the time, they were great kids. You see these people in church, you see them all, in school, and when they're around certain adults, they had the smile on the face, they had the jovial attitude. Their voice even was a little bit higher in octaves. But then when it was time to do certain things, they would put a scowl on their face, and I remember someone saying, like, you look at a person and you didn't even know it was that same person. This same person that you had saw earlier, talking with your parents or talking with their parents, etc. They would come across when they were doing certain things where it was just a facial expression. Their voice got tense. Like it was a really aggressive attitude. And they felt as if that was the way that, not that in that context, in that place, in that context, essentially that's kind of what was needed. It was a survival thing. It's the guard dogs. You got certain guard dogs that at home, the sweetest animals. But then when they're given that command, they turn into a different dog, right? That only the handler wants to be around. The handler, it's not the same dog at home with the handler because the kids are there, as opposed to the context they have when they go out. So when we start talking about the voice, and once again, phone sales, I remember when I first started, it comes across so easy that you understand how long your conversations are. And so I even have like a phone voice at times where I have to slow my cadence down. I have to smile while I'm on the phone. I have to emphasize certain words, even parts of words, because there's certain sentences that you can say, the way that you say it, it can have like 4 or 5 different meanings, or the person can take it a certain kind of way. When you go to the next level of effective communication is really dissecting the other person's personalities. You all hear me talk about, I talk about the DISC personality a lot, which you have your driver, you have your expressive, you have your amiable, and you have your analytical. And you talk with these people totally different. Drivers like myself, like we just get straight to the point. We get straight to the point. Now, this can come off rude if I'm talking to an expressive, because an expressive has to, they're the ones that are always talking. They're the ones that they have to flower up the conversations. They wear these bright, they tend to wear bright colored clothes or things that stick out. Then you have the amiable. And here's the crazy thing. You want to get a lot of canceled appointments. Most of your canceled appointments are going to come from amiables because they just want to get along. And they will tell you yes until they would, whatever you say, yes, you're right. Okay, so we'll have an appointment. You schedule an appointment with that amiable, and they'll ghost you. The amiables will be the first ones to ghost you. Amiables will be the ones that write you an email and say, I'm not going to make it, or a text message and say I'm not going to make it. You tend to get a lot of that from amiables. And then you also have the analyticals. Analyticals just need you to back stuff up with evidence. And what I've also figured out with the analyticals is you kind of have to allow them to give you the information. So I can talk to them and make sure all of your numbers are correct as well. But even your numbers being correct, because they're going to analyze and overanalyze, they're the source of a lot of canceled appointments as well, because they're going to go and check these numbers against whatever numbers they want to check them against. So be careful with the numbers that you do. But when you talk with analyticals, you have to allow them to give you your information. So what you do is you have to show them where they can find the information, allow them to do their research on the information, and then allow them to bring it back to you. So, and that's just another level of attempting to figure out. And really, you get these through questions, figuring out what kind of personality type most people are, because as when people aren't expecting your call at first, most of them do tend to be drivers because they just want to get off the phone. So if you can kind of do a pattern interrupt to where you get them to talk, at that point you can kind of start to figure out how can you approach this. Because with the amiable, my words have to be very soft. I have to talk very slow. I have to, there's probably a lot more chuckling involved with the amiable. There's more that give and take of letting them get their feelings out and them, because they want a connection. Whereas the driver is like, what is this about? What is this about? Okay, so how can you help me? Your sentences start to get shorter. You still have to allow them to get their point across as the driver. But these are just these intricate, because you spoke about intricate ways of watching people and how you listen to them. For people, when you're in sales, these are these intricate ways of getting better sales. Because essentially each file, which we tend to be, that we tend to do it the way that we are. You may not have like a driver. There's only 6 to 9% of people in the world that are drivers. So that means that only 6 to 9% of people are actually collaborating with me, right? If I just continue to be a driver, I immediately had to understand how to be tactful dealing with different people. I immediately had to say, okay, this is an expressive. Okay, let me let this person talk. And then you interject every now and then just to give them something else to talk about. You want to ask these questions and you want to go down this line with them, but you have to give them time to talk. That's where the listening came in. And the analytical, which I'm, under pressure, I do turn to be an analytical. I really love numbers as well. So I don't mind going back and forth with numbers. But if you're just one or the other, you're going to miss out on a lot of different conversations. And really, it's not even about sales. It's about connecting. Like, how can I connect with all these different people? As a driver, that's almost 90+% of the population that does not want to be a driver. They're like, this is where I used to get, man, Michael, you just run over people. Like, you just come and you just run. And I'm just like, but this is just the way it is. And there's no other way about it. And I don't even understand why we have to have these long, drawn out conversations. However, you do, because you want to connect at a higher level with these different people. I mean, I personally think that life is definitely about people. At one of the highest priorities or values of life being about people. And not only that, what about your family members? Like, I can tell, like, Elijah's probably with me anyways, he's an amiable, right? I can see him being more expressive when he's around his friends, because we do have these two different dynamics of personalities that we have, And then I would think that most kids are amiables with their parents. Right? Like, most kids tend to be amiable because they just want to get along to get along. We want to get along with our parents. And then some kids tend to come out as their expressive side. Some kids just do remain amiables. There's more amiables than anything else in this world. Most people, that's where you hear this, like, most people don't want arguments. Most people don't want to argue with other people. They just want to get along. Okay, yeah, you're right. This carrot cake is great. The whole time they're allergic to carrot cake. They're allergic to carrot. Yeah, this tastes good. Not many people want to say, this is terrible. Which I'm laughing. My driver's side came out this morning. I was on a conversation I was doing a mastermind with a couple of other realtors. And there's a guy, shouts out to Pat. He's in Philadelphia, really great realtor. Pat's like, he's, in his 50s. And he said, well, Mike, don't you think? And so he uses what in sales they call tie downs. That's the school of sales where it comes from, where you tie people down by getting them to say correct, and they'll say yes, and they just agree with you. That really doesn't. It's tougher on drivers, because drivers will give you pushback, which, like I said, I'm a driver. So it's like, Mike, don't you think? And I was like, no, I don't think. There was another guy on the phone with George. Shouts out to George, excellent realtor in Orlando, who tends to be an amiable. And at the end of the conversation, I came back to Pat. I was like, Pat, listen, don't take anything that I say, that being hurtful, whatever, because he was thinking about something that happened. He's an analytical, something that happened like a week ago. And George, being an amiable, was like, yeah, you guys, that masculine alpha kind of came out, and I didn't know where to go with it. And now, because he wants everyone to be okay. By the time the conversation ends and the mastermind ends, George is really vested in everything being okay. Me as a driver, like, I don't care one way or the other. Like, technically, I'm just like, I hope he gets it. You know what I mean? And Pat really, analyticals really don't. It doesn't matter to them. I wasn't going to change his stance. That entire conversation was not effective communication at all. I was having a Mike moment. I wasn't being empathetic. I was being a Mike driver, which is just like this. I don't care. Like, no, I don't. No, that's not correct. And I probably was doing it uh, intentionally, just to get a ride. We spoke about that in another episode. I was, because I wanted to get my point across. However, once again, guys, that's not effective communication. I realized it, but it happens. I'm a work in progress. But that's, once again, another level to the communication. And this, so I said all that to say this: we can continuously work on our communication, and this is a forever thing, because even though we try to categorize it into these 4 different profiles, right? There's different contexts, there's different emotions, people are people, there's different cultures, there's different this. So you can always get better at communication. There's always something to learn. And this is like one of the most valuable skill sets that you can have. The very first episode, and I'll end it here, brother. The very first episode, we spoke about when does the communication start, or negotiation start, or mediation starts. And then we mentioned that it starts at home. I would go even further, that it starts inside of yourself, because we're always negotiating with ourselves. We're always mediating with ourselves. We're always trying to get our own point of view across, but it starts within ourselves first, and then it kind of goes out. And the more effective we are with negotiating with ourselves, when do we say something? When do we not say something? How do we get this information across, essentially? Because we want to get, hopefully we want to get some information across. What are we doing with it? If we start here with ourselves, with the great effective negotiation and getting better at that skill level, I mean, this world will be, you just do better in life.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Anna even said, man, Mike's words are so solid, his facts are solid. And I thought the same thing, man. I was extremely impressed on all the information that you were able to share with us in reference to the different personality types, driver, animal, and the other ones that you had mentioned in that short period of time. So I was grateful for that. And, you mentioned that the first episode, about how this mediation, it does start on the inside. It starts in between our 2 ears, right? We're mediating things all the time, trying to figure out whether it's worth doing or not worth doing, and we're taking side for ourselves, and sometimes we're not taking side for ourselves, and the thing about it is, like, us as parents, when we start to realize that our children, let me draw that word back. It's not even about parents realizing that their children are starting to utilize these talents. It's about knowing that within inside of yourself, and if you have children, giving them the opportunity to actually grow, give them the opportunity to be, so many times children don't get the opportunity to be until they get much, much older. And I think we've mentioned it. We sprinkled this thought process in a couple of these different shows, but we almost lock young people into a certain thought process by what we deliver to them every day, by what we quote unquote allow them to do. And there was something special that you had said earlier, Mike, when you were talking about how when it's an analytical person, how you have to give them the information and allow them, and then let them bring it to you. This is something very key that I do with my children, especially with my youngest, with Jonah especially. And this is only because I've learned so much after raising 2 other young ladies, and it was that. And Jonah is he's a cloth of a, he's a piece of another. How you say that? He's a horse of another color, so to speak. Cut from a different cloth, so to speak.
I want to while the bells go, while the bells toll. I think that was them telling us we need to finish this episode up. I was thinking about the brother you mentioned with the kids, and that is a big source of resentment for some of these kids. Like I start to hear some of the older people as they get to, in their 20s and 25s, and they talk about their parents. A lot of the resentment that comes from it is not feeling like they were never heard. They were never allowed to let their personality show. That may also come with a lot of the acting out when they get to 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, whatever it is, the age when they kind of separate from the household, is that they felt like they weren't being heard. They weren't being respected. They didn't have the autonomy. If we can further, and I'm glad you said that with your two young ones, and now you get to you get to actually work it through with Jonah, which I saw the other day. The brother like 6'1,000. I saw Jonah the other day. I didn't know who it was. I was like, who's that adult next to Elijah? I was picking up Elijah from school. I couldn't recognize him. Oh my gosh. He's got, what is he, like 6 foot, 6'1"?
I think it's 5'8".
Oh, well, he was towering over all the other kids. He was out there. But yeah, go ahead, brother. Shouts out to Jonah. That growth spurt.
I mean, Jonah is a very, very stubborn individual, but he's tenacious, and he is a driver, But I've also used a lot of different techniques with him, and so reaching him is more challenging, because with my first daughter, it was like, I got my own life fixed and everything, and I just kind of like towered over her and guided her down this pathway of what I believe was right. That was my standpoint. My wife too. We were very much similar in that fashion. And then she left, and it was like, oh my gosh, I'm tired. I'm tired of, raising kids. That first one took a lot out of me, And so we changed a little bit, But my middle child, she had learned so much from the eldest that she never pressed any buttons.
Okay.
So we didn't have to be concerned with anything. She was easy to raise. She never pressed any buttons, because the oldest had always told her, don't do this because this will happen. Don't do this because this will happen. And obviously that's a negative thought process, but we had helped her to develop it, and that was part of the culture in the first child. Now in the second child, since she has learned, she just took all the advice of her older sister, who was coaching her through life, and she managed to just kind of like ease on through without any difficulty. And then here comes Jonah, who is totally different. He's like, nah, I'm just going to do anything my own way. I put a hat on him. This one I knew Jonah was different. I put the ball cap on him front way, 2 or 3 years of age. And he took the cap off and turned it around and put it on backwards and walked off.
You knew what you It's not going to be that easy.
Case was closed from the very beginning, And so when you were talking about how this starts on the inside, God is like put the DNA, it should be GNA, God separated all of us with different personality traits, and then it's up to the parents to help enhance them. But if we don't enhance them, we're probably killing them, And so it really means a whole lot to learn how to communicate before you have children, because you can actually diminish or put out the light that your child is designed to shine with, or you can elevate them to a high place where they can shine bright willingly. And then there's still that place in between where they can just be kind of lost. And so it's really up to us to do our very best to learn how to do these things, and then to do that. I think we mentioned this word a few times, intentionally, to do it intentionally. Just like what you were just talking about, how you're very intentional with what you do. And I want to close my piece with this, is that when you were speaking, this is what came to my mind. And it's come to my mind a few different times. But I remembered again when you were speaking last, and you were talking about analytical, you were talking about amiable, you were talking about all these different personality traits and how you can adjust to them, and all these different things and these different tones that you use for all these different people. And what that tells me and teaches me is that all of these things are learned.
Yeah.
That means that any person listening to this show can learn any of this. I'm empathic, Mike's analytical, but Mike has become more empathic, and I've become a little more analytical. And we've done that over time because
Yeah.
we're teaching ourselves these different processes along with other things. And that's the development. If you look through all these different shows, you're going to see these developments in the way that we speak, even. Our speech has changed over the last, you know, year and a half. And it's because this is all you can learn it. These are skills. So never, ever, ever think that you cannot be whatever it is that you desire to be, because you can. First, start your communication on the inside. You need to talk yourself out of being that person that can't, and talk yourself into being the person that can.
Absolutely. Well said. That's where we'll end it, guys. Listen, we appreciate you. Like this, I think that these were some of the most um or they could be some of the most impactful shows. Some real quick resources, guys. Toastmasters. I can't say it enough.
Toastmasters.
I want to say
Keep us
maybe,
up.
yeah, maybe around $200 a year. You
Yes.
can't find a better investment bang for your buck than that. You'd be hard pressed to find one at $200 a year. And just because it's $200 a year does not negate the value that you get. This my speech, my everything came from getting around a great
Simmons Kitchen.
Toastmaster group, etc. Guys, so check out Toastmaster. That'd be the best thing for you. I hear the brother being called. Other than that,
I'm,
guys,
I'm,
listen.
I'm being called.
Yeah, listen, guys. Appreciate you all for checking on Community Beacon. Until next time, we love you. Peace.